So hello, today is December 10, and I would like to welcome on the last December Czech Talk session this year. My name is Vendula. I'm from the Rail Technical Writing team and in Brno, and I will be a moderator today. And now it's time to introduce our two speakers, Marie Dorušková and Tereza Novotná. They accepted the challenge to introduce user experience team at Red Hat. And before we start, I would like to just mention, if you have questions, type it to chat, to Q&A session, or raise your hand, and you can ask questions directly. And I will paste, I have a link to the presentation here, so I will put it in the chat as well. So if you want to follow the presentation on your screen, you can. And Tereska, Maruška, floor is yours. You can start.
Yeah, so Terka, can you please share your screen for us? Thank you so much. Yeah, so hello everyone. Thank you so much for joining. I hope you all are doing well. And we are going to tell you something about the user experience in Red Hat. My name is Marie, and I've been in Red Hat for like 2 years and 6 months, and I'm design lead for the connected customer experience and malware detection, which is a new application on console.redhat.com. And in the meantime, I'm maintaining the Patternfly sketch library.
And my name is Tereza Novotná. I work as an interaction designer for Red Hat, specifically for Insights. I've been with Red Hat for 3.5 years, and I'm a lead designer for Advisor, Patch, and all of the onboarding adoption for the application. I really enjoy the cross-functional collaboration with engineers, product managers, and designers. So we belong to the user experience team, where we currently have 127 UXD members. What we do, we create interfaces so that users can intuitively navigate and understand our products. We are researchers, interaction designers, visual designers, content designers, but also front-end developers. To achieve consistency between the products, so they all look similar, we use Patternfly design system.
So what is user experience? I think that there is already mentioned it, but user experience focuses on how something works and how people interact with it. And the UX designer ensures that the product makes sense to the user by creating flows from one step to the next. And now, on the next slide, I would like to tell you a story about labels. And as a part of that, I want to show you the whole process and how it works in general. So let's get started. Yeah, so our products often contain tables and with data, as you can tell. We use labels like these small, colorful elements inside of each row. And that's how we highlight the element on the page to bring attention or just make it more searchable. And on the next slide, we show 2 types of labels. We have filled one, we have outline version, we have label groups. And maybe you can ask like, hey, how do you know which one to use? There's like too much. And as a designer, you have to decide what's the best option depending on your use case and other elements in a UI. And Patternfly team also provide a design guideline for each component. So definitely this is helpful for a product designer. However, back to our story. Yeah, you can go like to the previous slide. We've started using compact tables to save some space because we have a lot of data in our tables. And you can see that the row is tighter. There is not much room like around the text and labels. But the problem is that we are still using default labels that are just much more thicker and bigger in general. So and when you take a deeper look at the labels, for example, the incident one, the red one, you can see that this is just much more bigger than the text. and the whole arrow, so it's not visually appealing. And one of our colleagues mentioned this issue and created an issue in Patternfly repository and mentioned that we need compact labels. And that's how the whole process started. So what happened after that? After that, someone from the Patternfly team handed this issue over to a designer from a visual team. This person designed a new compact labels with examples in a context. After that, someone from the core team, this team takes care of the HTML and CSS, implemented these labels, and then React Patternfly team implemented it with JavaScript. So after that, I was asked to add these new compact labels to our sketch library. And in the end, the product designer can finally update mockups and hand them over to the UI developer. For example, you can create a Jira, or you don't have to. It depends how you are used to work with your developer. So that's the whole process, what happened. And I think it's pretty easy, right? Just this small label and so much work. So this is how it looked before. And the next slide shows how it should look like. You can see the difference, that the labels are much smaller. And I also forgot to mention that we use Sketch for creating UIs and Marvel app for publishing and sharing our mockups with product managers, with developers, and everyone. So that's all for me. I think, Teresa, it's your turn.
Thank you. So that was our first story of design. My second one that I would like to share is how we design dash bar in Patch application and how we had to change it based on customer feedback. To start off, I want to introduce how we usually work, a little bit of a design process. So the first stage, what we usually do is we try to emphasize with our users, know for whom we are designing for, to understand their needs. Then we come up with defining what we are actually solving and how that solves the business needs, the what. In the third stage, in the ideating stage, we try to think outside of the box, come out with a lot of different solutions that people might find helpful, but basically show several options how this design can be solved. In the prototyping phase, we take all of the ideas and create them into something that's actually tangible. So we create the mockups that look almost real, that you can test. And the last part is testing the prototype. The ideal part, the ideal case is to test it with real users. So we conduct usability testing or get customer feedback. You can go through this process once, but also twice or 3 times. You iterate and you create better designs. So that was the design process in brief as a whole. And I would like to share this entire process on a story of how we created basically a dash bar for Patch application. So the first step, which I emphasize with our users, I talk about Red Hat Insight, specifically Patch, and our primary users are system administrators, so we try to emphasize with them. Then I receive requirements from my program product manager, to better define what we are working on. We need some requirements. There was a need to create a piece of UI that was summarize status of our patches. So I basically had my assignment on a paper, my requirements, the definition was there. In the next phase, when I started ideating, here are actual screenshots of the mockups, I came up with several options how we could solve that problem visually. So looking at option 1, we came up with the idea of including several cards on top. It would have a title, it would have an icon and a count. So that was in the option, for example, 1. Another option we were looking into was using the donut charts, where you could also filter by clicking on the legend, so you could see that like the patch is available or up to date. Just a different take on how that could be visualized. Here you can see where we took the interaction further and kind of looked up how that would work. So if you click on systems up to date, it would show in the toolbar via chips. And this bottom area is showing some other exploratory dashboard looks. So here it's just a simple text, no icons. Here we have icons with text. And this one is using a long card. So all of the elements are in one card. So this is what we were thinking, several options, but then we needed to decide what's the best one. So this is the kind of a final solution that as a team we decided on, that we would have cards on top of our systems. And basically if you click on that, it would get filtered. So what you're looking is a prototype. What I will do, I will show you how it looks live in the product. So as you saw in here, this is a prototype, and this is a live product. So we have the cards implemented on top, and that's where our point comes. It was implemented, but we heard from customers it's not working as intended, and it's slightly confusing, and I'll just show you how. So the system up to date is a filter. When I click on that, you can see the table below filters, but then the numbers changed here as well. And it's kind of confusing. I'll show you one more time. So you have 16 systems up to date, but you have 32 patches and 14. And if I filter by systems up to date, this basically changes because it's dynamic. And if I click on the number 7, sales systems, it filters, it shows you all of the 7 systems, but also this number changes. So based on customer feedback, we decided we need to make the dash bar static. So when you click on that, it should not change. And going back to presentation, we listened to customer feedback and we fixed it. So the cards are not going to be dynamically changing, they will be fixed. So it will be like a fixed filter. And that is the story, how we got requirements, we came up with ideas, we iterated, we got customer feedback that was tested. And finally, we have a usable dashboards in our product. That is the end of our second story, and now comes some space for questions. And before I dive into questions, actually, apologies, in the presentation that Wendy shared with you, there are some links that you can explore if you want to learn more. So you can see what design system we use, Patternfly, click through it. But also, if you're interested more in our team, we recently published UX, kind of like a engagement with user experience designers on our team. So for example, this talk talks about how people start with user experience. The link is in the presentation. And if you want to dig or learn more, I encourage you to read that. Now is the question time.
Yes, I can see some questions, so I will start from the end. Oh, okay. I'll start from the beginning because there are more and more questions. So Radomir Ludva had a question, maybe suggestion. I have to leave the meeting, but if anyone has an idea how to improve these UI interactions. First, just one little hint. Is it possible to add keyboard interaction for documentation search results? When I press escape, I want to close the window with results and try searching again. It is not important to use a mouse and find and click the magic close on the top right. Created busy, but it was not reflected. So what do you do with these suggestions and with these bugs? And are you do you have access to it, or it ends up on the front end development side?
Honestly, I think it depends on the product, because we don't know the product here from the comment. And also it depends on the developer, I think. And if they are using like Buttonfly 4, that's another question. Yeah.
From what I'm reading, for me, it's challenging to imagine the actual example. But usually, I would say we try to accommodate or use the best practices. So usually, very often, the best practice of the most used or the most common thing is when you press escape, it usually closes the window. But like I cannot make a suggestion based on this short interaction where I haven't seen the product or anything.
Okay, thank you. Second, another hint. If on a page is text box for editing, let's move focus on it. For example, again. So these are, I guess, suggestions. You work with it, right? It's more of a suggestion than question. So
yeah, like I cannot imagine. Like I don't see the product, so it's hard to.
Yeah, I think it's for a bigger discussion offline. Yeah.
Question from Milan Zamazal. How do you include accessibility in the design process?
So we are using a design system, and they take care of the accessibility, and they are testing it. So the components should be prepared for that.
Okay, thank you. And question from Honza Horak. Can you expand on how you gather feedback from customers? Are those internal customers? If external, how do you choose which customer to ask?
I can take this question. So we closely collaborate with PMs, product managers, who talk to customers on a daily basis. So it depends whether we need external feedback or internal feedback. Very often we need the end user feedback, so it's like actual real customers. How do you choose which customer to ask? We have analytics in our product, so we can track who uses what part, and then we can reach out to these people. Is that answering the question?
Okay. And question from Radek Pokal. You should also mention that you attend customer meetings and verify designs with them.
But that's not a real question. It's more, as I already mentioned, that UXD team usually joins the customer meetings, and that's where we verify the different designs. And also sometimes we performed specific UXD research groups where there were like multiple customers. The mockups were presented to them, and then we gathered feedback on these UXD mockups. So yes, all of these are verified with customers, and there's been constant interaction with them.
Nice. Okay, and the next question from Georgi. Do all the Red Hat customer-facing applications utilize Patternfly, or there are examples of mixing several libraries with custom solutions?
They should be using Patternfly, but I'm assuming that there are definitely some several libraries together and some customizable solutions for some products, but I don't know.
But it's definitely a thing that the Red Hat engineering leadership recommends for majority of the product to use Patternfly, because it provides the consistent behavior and look and feel.
Yeah, right now I am part of one project where we try to move to Patternfly 4. I don't know if the old project was in early version of Patternfly or something different, but it looks completely different. So there definitely are some, especially older projects that hasn't been moved so far.
This is interesting, like considering that we use it to projects that we are not authors of. So how do you do it when we are not upstream of those projects? Are upstreams, for example, willing to adopt Patternfly somehow, or do we redesign them, for example?
I think it's totally up to them. Patternfly is open source design system. We cannot force anyone to use the best design system we have, but they have the ability to choose what they want. So I would say it's up to the leadership of that product.
Yeah, that makes sense. And do you know about such cases when the upstream that we were really not upstreams ourselves, like they adapted Patternfly based on our recommendation, for example?
I know Foreman is a community-based product that uses Patternfly. So they worked well with adoption of the design.
Yeah, thanks. So there are some cases. Thanks.
Okay, we have some more questions. One from Pavel Holica, where there are compliance that all Patternfly interfaces look the same, and it's hard to distinguish products. For me as engineer, not frequently using those products, I find this little bit annoying as I'm confused which product I'm interacting with at the moment. But that may be just my problem.
I would say maybe your problem. I don't want to say that, but usually the most known behavior is you don't want something different all the time. If you want to have something usable, and which is the goal of our application, to have an ease of use, so everyone can understand that you want to follow the same principles. So the layout should look same, the drop down should work the same, and it's kind of expected from the system to work the same.
Yeah, I just want to mention that you can customize like these components, so it doesn't have to look exactly the same. So it depends on team and how they approach it.
Mm-hmm. Maybe it would be nice just change colors, but we have unified color system. It's Red Hat, so everything will be red, right? Okay, and another question from Theo Apazoglu. What is the ideal relationship for you with the product manager?
For me, it's a close collaboration. I tend to work with several product managers. We iterate or discuss the designs together. We gather the requirements. We talk to the customers. So it's a very close working collaboration.
Yeah, and also discussing options, for example, for a future. This is definitely good. When the PM, see all the ideas for the product.
Okay. And I have one question for you. If there is a team who has an old web UI, for example, or need a new feature, and they don't collaborate with UX department yet, how to start, who to contact?
Definitely get in touch with the management or our basically leadership. Maybe they can assign some UX resources to your team.
Okay.
And also, if you need like a new feature, you can create an issue and Pattern Fly team can take care of it and run this like discussion about this new feature.
Mhm. Okay, thank you. And Zuzana Zobkova has a question. What are the skills that you consider important for your role? Which frameworks do you work with?
Oh, that's a very open-ended question. The skills we consider important to all, I would say, is open-mindedness, collaboration, and ability to create deliverables, knowing the design process. Which framework do you work with? I don't think I can answer that question. We don't work with frameworks really. I mean, we use the design system, which could be a framework. And yeah, Marshka, do you have something to add on this question?
Maybe can you expand more, like, what do you mean by frameworks? We are using Sketch and the Marvel app. And in Sketch, there is like a huge library and also the template file with real examples. So these are our frameworks, I guess. And definitely you have to receive the feedback all the time. So you just need to be okay with that. Even if it's wrong, even if it's like good. So this is another skill, receiving feedback.
Mm-hmm. And it is, I guess, the same for us, technical writers. So for Zuzana and me, and for your user experience team, and I think for developers too, right? That we need to be able to adjust, improve if necessary.
Yeah, and also I think I forgot to mention that we also collaborate with the content team. And they are helping us how to use, I don't know, for example, dates and times and, for example, the empty states. If you have an empty state and you need some content for it, we can ask and they will help us.
Yeah, and we have a question from Lenka Bočincová. What do you enjoy more, working on existing product design and improving it, or working from scratch on new product design? Any interesting example?
So I think we both will have a different answer to that. Me personally, I love the conceptual part where you basically are and you have to come up with solutions. So in this case, it can be designing a new feature. You're told in our fairly technically complicated products that we need a new feature that needs to do this and that. So how do you create the UI for it? And then you gather all of the requirements, what we have in backend with the team, create mock-ups, the flows, fill in more details, kind of create the vision, how it could look like. And then from vision, the ideal idea, you have to scale back and figure out what's actually technically feasible. So that's my favorite part, the contextual area where you're creating new features or new products. Mariska, do you have something to add?
Yeah, I love creating new products and new features as well. And I love storytelling. So I'm creating a lot of flows with infographics and a lot of data reports. I love these visualizations. So that's my love.
Okay, so it looks like you answered all the questions so far. So is there any last question before we go? It looks like not. So I will paste the feedback form to the chat. So please give us your feedback. And I would remind one important thing: if you have a topic that you would like to present, please contact me or Dorka or Lenka Bočincová, whoever is in this project, and let us know, and we can plan something for 2022. And because this is probably the last opportunity I can see some of you before the end of this year, so I would like to wish you Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. And thank you very much, Teresa and Marie, for informing us about user experience design team.
Thank you so much
for all the questions.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.